Alrighty. Welcome back, everybody. I had to put on my finest Hawaiian shirt today because we have an amazing guest here. I'm here with Randy Kirk. In addition to having some of the best Hawaiian shirts and Cybertruck bottle openers in the game, on his channel, he gives excellent Tesla coverage, and I always look forward to hearing his great insights into both Tesla, the company, as well as the broader markets. How are you doing today, Randy?
Everything is really, really good. Selling a lot of Cybertruck bottle openers, I'll tell you that.
I'm sure they're going like hotcakes, and with the holidays coming, definitely, I'm sure you'll be selling a lot more. I think I might have to buy a couple.
There you go. All right.
So, no shortage of news this week for Tesla. So, definitely want to talk about all that. And maybe, in the latter half here, we can kind of get into more, zoom out a little, get your long-term perspective on all things Tesla and where you think this incredible company's headed. But I guess we got to start with, I got the book right here. I've been reading it. I think you have as well. What are your thoughts on Walter Isaacson's biography of Elon Musk here?
So there's a funny story to tell here, and maybe you'll cut it out later because you won't think it's so funny. My partner of some 30 years, when we had a manufacturing business together, he recently wrote his biography. And it was also like 600 pages long. I needed to read that because, of course, why wouldn't you want to read your partner's biography? As I'm reading the Isaacson biography, I am amazed by how similar they are in tone and the way that they describe, events and whatnot. And my partner is a really, really strong writer. In fact, he's maybe a better writer than me, but I was the one that wrote all the books. Go figure. Anyway, so the tone, the style, the management of the content is all excellent. I mean, obviously, the guy is considered to be one of the great biographers of our era, up there with two or three others that are significant contributors in that space. On the other side of the coin, I'm 2/3 exactly. This morning, I was 2/3 of the way in. I am yet to find anything that was really newsworthy, really surprising. But then I am a massive consumer of content. So for somebody who's never read my books on Elon Musk, who have never read the other biography, the Ashley Vance biography, which was excellent. Maybe they haven't read the PayPal, mafia book. I forget the name of it right now. It just skipped my mind. But if they haven't read any of this other stuff, and if they're not like consuming on a daily basis, then yeah, I think it's a really, really good way to get the full picture of the Elon Musk story, along with a decent, okay handling of the other companies. Goes pretty deep on SpaceX and Tesla, but not nearly as deep as we do on the Elon Musk mission.
Yeah. I'm sure that's all true. And, you've written multiple books. You got them on display back there. Those are definitely on my reading list as well. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think it is cool the way he wrote it all out chronologically. So you really get to follow along from the beginning. And I've just found it's just very inspiring, just to see everything this guy went through, all the adversity, and to make something of his life, because you could choose to be a victim. He chose to be a victor and just go on and do all of this incredible work. So I think it's truly inspiring. I guess I should have asked before. When I have new guests on the channel here, I like to ask, who is Randy Kirk? I know that you've had multiple businesses. You've got all this great work on Tesla. Who is Randy?
Oh my gosh, that's so sad. Let's see, on my tombstone, I wanted to say always closing. Okay, so first and foremost, at the core, I'm a sales guy. I am a product guy. I've sold services for the last 15 years. I've been a sales and marketing consultant. So I've sold services too, but I'm really a product guy. I love product. I had a manufacturing company for 30 years. We were plastics manufacturers. We were at about $5.5 million in sales, sold people like Target and Walmart and all the rest, sold all over the world, imported, exported, pretty much, I think exported to 4 continents and imported from 3. I mean, so it was a pretty cool business, but I've had, I don't know now, I've lost count again. I think it's on the order of 50 different small businesses. like just last week, 10 days ago, started selling Cybertruck bottle openers. I mean, that's a separate business. It will not only be sold on, over the air like I'm doing now, but putting it up on Amazon. And before you and I got on today, I was taking pictures so that we can put the bottle opener up on Amazon. So, I've had a lot of small businesses and written 10 books on small business.
Wow.
Mostly in the bicycle industry. Most of the books were written for bicycle shop owners.
Okay, wow, that's interesting. I just before we got on here, I was just doing a little 2-hour bike ride. I'm training for my second Ironman race. So we'll have to, we'll have to talk about that later for sure. So yeah, really interesting. I mean, so you have it all: sales, product, manufacturing. So you really understand, how these companies operate. I mean, how do you look at a company like Tesla and their manufacturing process, and I guess all those different segments, just with all the knowledge you bring? I mean, what do you think of this company?
Yeah, so that's part of the inspiration for me to write the books. Is when I first rode in a Model 3 about 7 years ago. I think it was about 7 years ago. A friend got one, and he was jetting it up and down Main Street in Corona, California. And I'm like, oh my gosh! And I was in love from the get-go. I am definitely a guy who likes fast cars, always have, so I got interested, started looking into it, and then, as you point out, as a manufacturer and a product guy, I was totally mesmerized from day one. And as I got deeper and deeper into it, because I've written all these books to help small business owners become better at what they do, it occurred to me, this guy is like over the top on all these different things. I mean, I've been talking for years and years and years about how important it is to be able to have a vision, get that vision narrowly focused so that it's very clean and clear, so that you can tell others about your vision, and then go out and communicate that vision, but not just to your customers. It's just as important to communicate that vision to your employees and your suppliers and your investors. I mean, all these people need to know what the mission is, and that's what that's his number one superpower. Here is what I want to do. It is over the top, crazy, and wild. Don't you want to follow me and do it too? It'll be so much fun to work together. And people go, yeah. And you see that all through the new biography, where he's sitting down with somebody, goes, you want to go to work for me? And they go, absolutely.
Yeah, there's, it's definitely a culture that is not for everyone, but for the people who do want to, be hardcore, like that's his favorite word to use here, that they keep mentioning in the book, who want to be hardcore, who want to be empowered and really just go out there, the go-getters to change the world. It seems like it's the best work environment that perhaps has ever existed for that type of person.
The other side of that coin, and I think it's really important to say this, if anybody out there is in business for themselves or thinking of getting into business for themselves, it isn't the only way to run the show. Elon will say it over and over again. Well, if you get too close to your employees, then, you're not going to be able to fire them or tell them what they need to do. That's not necessarily true. I had my company, my manufacturing company was in business for 29 years. A lot of the employees were with me for 28 years. And I was not hardcore. I am considered to be a Charlie Brown type. I'm easygoing, but I am very, very interested in a lot of the other things that Elon talks about, like, for instance, having an intensity, having a burn the boats attitude, fast iteration, being willing to blow it up, all those kinds of things that he talks about. Yeah, I'm 100% having a sense of urgency. I used to just pound that in to my people, but I pounded it in with love and gentleness, not with the threat of being fired hanging over their head. And people called it was called AC International. People would say that they went to AC University. They learned how to do their craft or to run a business, and several of them have graduated on to also own their own businesses.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, there's definitely multiple ways to skin the cat, and it's just funny, like, how many parallels there seem to be being drawn between him and Steve Jobs, especially with the book. And Wozniak was asked by Isaacson, like, how would you have run the company differently? Like, why did Steve Jobs have to be so mean? And he's like, well, yeah, I would have been nicer. It would have been like one big family. I would have given everyone stock options. But I don't know if we would have invented the Macintosh, invented the iPhone, if it would have got the same result. So definitely a lot of interesting stuff there. You touched on a couple important things, I think, of like the speed of iteration, Tesla's pace of change, really the pace of change with all Elon's companies, how SpaceX is willing to blow things up and learn from that. Whereas I don't know if it's a symptom of the bureaucratic nature of what a lot of these companies, whether it's the defense contractors, NASA, they're more risk averse. And the result seems like over the last 20 years is it's tremendously slowed down progress, because instead of, testing things, they want to make sure everything is perfect before they launch. And, that means that instead of launching in a year, it takes 10 years to do things. And I was just listening to the Lex Friedman interview with Walter Isaacson as well while I was riding the bike earlier. And Isaacson said that he thinks Tesla is the farthest ahead in regard to artificial general intelligence and real world artificial intelligence when it comes to things like full self-driving. And now we've got the Optimus Robot. And Tesla is really just like at the edge here, pushing the limits, pushing the boundaries. And it really seems like they're the only company that is, really bringing artificial intelligence to the physical world to such a big magnitude.
So you can't get away from, at the end of the day, I'm sorry to use that phrase, I hate that phrase, but you can't get away from genius, okay? You can be a great salesperson, you can be a great marketing person, you can be somebody who can get in front of the top buyers in the world and sell them stuff. I've done that, and I'm not bragging. I have. But there's another level. There's another level in Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and folks like that. It's a level that I can't even begin to aspire to. And it's a level of genius where he sees the future so plainly. People talk about 4D chess or playing the chess moves four moves out. These are things that it's another level of insanity or brilliance. I'm not sure which, but so you're a bicycle lover, and you were intrigued by the fact I was in the bicycle business my entire career. So we had a product years ago, and there's no way I'll be able to tell this story that'll make sense. Well, okay. But it was going to be a big computer and a radio, et cetera, way bigger than we'd have to have it today. But this is like 40 years ago. It's going to go on the handlebars, and it would fill up the entire handlebar actually on a regular handlebar set. And we were going to sell it. We sold it to Sears, actually. Sold them quite a nice contract. But we were trying to come up with a name, and we had this artist that worked for us who was a little Elon-esque in that regard. He thought so far outside the box, and he wanted to call it Brains in Motion. I mean, who comes up with a name like that? Brains in Motion, and we would have called it something like, computer on, bicycle computer, something really normal. Elon isn't on that level. He is in a whole nother place. He looks at a problem and he goes into another world and comes up with these solutions that are just mind-boggling. And that is, you can't get it done. You can have those those crazy, wild ideas. I had an idea years ago to create a Christian theme park. And I literally had a board of directors put together. I had people on the board. It was a wild and crazy idea. It was going to cost billions of dollars to put the thing together. But I didn't execute, did I? That theme park doesn't exist. But Elon, he's got enough ability to take the vision, like I had this vision and I was able to communicate it and I was able to get people on board with me. Then there's a whole nother level where he then gets it done. Maybe he gets it done late, but he gets it done.
Yeah, they're definitely optimistic on timeline, but I think it's the result of setting a very high bar, right? And they may say, oh, we're going to get it this year. It ends up taking 5 years, but then you've got companies like GM who have a goal to be 50% electric by 2035. Which is the better approach here? So every day there's all talk of competition. Competition is coming. Tesla killer, this, that, with the automotive market. And the other day in one of your videos, you said that competition is actually good for Tesla. Why is that?
Okay, so competition is good for any company, especially in a new category. If it's an existing category, not so much. If you're trying to break into an existing category with a Me Too product or a product that just has a couple of nice new features, you want to try to kill the competition. But if you're in a market that's completely brand new, then nobody knows about it. So each additional company that gets into the business is one more level of people being informed that this entire category even exists. So if you only have one electric car company, people say, well, I don't like the style of that electric car. And they don't even look at it again. They don't take a second look because they just don't like the look. Or they're only a van driver, and so there's no van. So they don't even take another look. They're a pickup driver, no pick. So you're ending up only getting a sliver of the population to pay any attention at all, maybe because they're very interested in cleaning up the CO2, maybe because they've always thought electric is smart, maybe because they are a power mad, car driver, and they would like to have that acceleration, and so you get this little sliver. But then when somebody comes in and they bring in one more car that looks a little different or that is a different style, like a pickup or a van or something, and so they add two. Now you got another sliver of people getting involved in the conversation. Or maybe it's too expensive and this new company's a little lower priced. All of that additional information, the additional, what do you want to call it? The eyeballs. You got more and more eyeballs on the product category. Some of those eyeballs are going to come back to you because now I've got my pickup by this other company. I'm interested in it, or whether I buy it or I don't buy it, but I'm talking to my friend and I'm telling him I'm thinking about an electric pickup. And he says, well, what about, isn't there another car company out there? And, oh yeah, well, there's this other car, but they only make sedans. They make sedans and sport cars and SUVs, but they don't make pickups. And so now you see how it starts to build on itself. Plus, there's nothing like competition to get your employees excited. So as the new stuff comes out, and you're like, hey, they were able to put their battery underneath the car in a different way using two layers. I think that's, I forget which one it is that's doing it. Rivian? I think it's Rivian that's doing a two-layer approach or something. And by doing two layers, they were able to get it more compact. And I don't know. I don't remember all the details. It was months and months ago that I read about this. And then you go to your employees and you're like, hey, they were able to do it this way. Have we thought about doing it that way? So now you're gathering additional brain power from the competition. Now, that's a couple of different ways that competition dramatically helps, especially in a new category.
Definitely, yeah, that makes sense. And then other effects, we've seen the Super Bowl effect. We've seen, obviously this is going to bring, like you said, with more eyeballs, more attention, people will start comparison shopping. People who weren't interested in an EV start to look up and compare and make their way to Tesla's website. Another thing that you've talked about, I think, which is more uncommon, something I've thought about as well, is just ROI, return on investment, return on invested capital. At a certain point, we can make things very simple and say, if Tesla is able to make $3,000 in profit, let's just say, off of each vehicle, but for one vehicle, but General Motors has to sell 5 vehicles to make the same amount of profit, who's going to win out in the long run? So that, again, just shows you long-term, I think, where we're headed here, because Tesla is...
It is so interesting. Again, that's why I wrote the book, The Elon Musk Method. It is so interesting that Elon has... It's not like he has 1 or 2 or 3 superpowers. I came up with 16 in the book, and I've come up with 3 since. It's incredible. The return on invested capital is something that I bet you that not 1 in 100 people listening right now even have ever heard of ROIC. I'm going to be honest with you. Until I got this deeply involved with the YouTube channel and started really going deeper and deeper and deeper, I'd never heard of return on invested capital. I'd heard of ROI my entire business career, but not ROIC. So return on investment is the total investment that is made in a company and what kind of percentage return are they getting. Return on invested capital is what does it cost you to build that factory in order to get X output, total dollar volume or total unit volume out of that factory. So you see Tesla building a factory for $2 billion and saying that they'll get 1 million cars out of it. And then you've got General Motors or Ford saying they're going to spend $4 billion on a factory and get 200,000 cars out of it. Well, that's a big difference in terms of the bottom line and in terms of what it takes you to build, to be able to grow your company very rapidly. And that people are like, how come Tesla's got, I had somebody in a comment this morning on one of my videos. How come Tesla has $23 billion in the bank and they're not just building factories so much faster? Well, there's only so much bandwidth in the company, and you can build so much with that money. It's hard to contemplate. You could build 10 gigafactories and have money left over. Well, they don't have the bandwidth to build 10 gigafactories simultaneously. So you have, a certain amount, and that's another critical element is for Elon, who has tremendous of his own personal bandwidth. And this is a real problem for entrepreneurs, is to limit their bandwidth, because I can't tell you, every entrepreneur, this is a fact. Okay, here's a fact. A true entrepreneur gets the job 70% done, and he's on to the next project. Okay, and that's what they talk about in the book all along. But I've known that for 20 years. I've known that about myself my whole life. But there's other books and other things that have been written about the true entrepreneur. We're not talking about a company owner, because that's another definition of entrepreneur. There's lots of company owners that are managers. They got it because their grandfather handed it down, or their dad, or their mom, or whatever handed it down to them. They are hobbyists.
They're not founders.
They can even be a founder, but they're a hobbyist, and so they buy a franchise, okay, or they buy something that's a cookie cutter of something else. But they're not entrepreneurial. They're not visionaries. They're not developing something totally new, a new method for doing things, or new products. So the entrepreneur, they have this weird way about them, but they get 70% done with building that company or putting that product out there, and now they're bored. They want to get on to the next deal. And this is Elon in spades.
Definitely. So I think question I have for Tesla, something I think about, having these conversations, reading this book, talking to all these, very intelligent people who understand the Tesla story, it is easy to get very exuberant about this company and its future. And, I just think about personally my portfolio. I've been holding Tesla since 2019, so it's split a couple times. I've got shares that have 20x. I think overall I'm up around 700% because I just continue to DCA. But it's 70% of my stock portfolio. And I think that's a number that financial advisors would shudder at. But yet I read this book and I talk to people like yourself, and I feel like it's not enough. So I'm just curious, how do you look at the company, or maybe how long have you been invested in it? And are you all in on Tesla stock? How do you think about all that?
Okay, so I'm older than dirt. I look a lot younger than I am, but you'll just have to guess my age. I am not all in, because I do have property. I do have my wife's portfolio is almost 100%. Well, no, it was. Her portfolio was almost all in very conservative, T-bills and things of this nature. But more recently, we've been moving more and more of it over into Tesla, even into some leaps, some long-term options. I have almost all of my personal investing, my portfolio, almost all of the cash part of it, or the non-property part, is almost all in Tesla. A little bit in ARK Invest, but I mean, like this much just for fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I have a mixed portfolio. If I was 25 or 35, probably even if I was 45, I think I'd be 100%. I think I'd be 100%. Because you can make it back.
Mm-hmm. That's true too. Yeah. So definitely speaks to your conviction in the company. Do you have any worries about the company? I mean, is there anything that worries you? We've been through. It's obviously very volatile, right? It takes a lot of stamina to hold on here. We've had so much happen over the last couple of years. 2022, watching it drop, 69 or 70% was not fun. But then again, when you look fundamentally, the business was doing better than it ever had, and the stock market can be irrational. Many question the valuation. Do you have any worries about the company?
I have no worries about the fundamentals of the company at all. I mean, we can talk about, Elon being called back home, to his original planet. That would be a worry. But the foundational fundamentals of the company are so solid, and the new products that are coming along are just absolute. Well, okay, if you watch my channel, I'm an optimist. So if I were not interested in Tesla any other way, if I didn't care about the cars and I didn't care about the dojo and if I didn't care about any of the energy, which I do, and I care about all these categories, and I'm very excited and interested in them. But the Optimus all by itself is mind-boggling. And again, as a factory owner, the minute I saw the thing walk out on the stage 2 years ago, the minute it walked out on the stage and was able to manage itself in just that little bit of time that we saw, I was like, I would have bought the thing. I would have paid $100,000, no questions asked, if they had put it on sale that day. And I'll just tell you a quick story. I had we manufactured bottles, but we didn't have, these were the bicycle style water bottles where you have the cap that snaps on and a little poppet that pops out there, and they snap on with a little tether, and the tether holds the cap in place. So when you take it off when you're riding your bike, you don't lose the cap because it's tethered on. Well, there was very, very hard to automate putting that cap on the top of that bottle. And I had some companies come in. Now, this is 30 years ago. I had some automation companies come in that were specialized in that kind of automation. And every one of them, the bid was $100,000 to automate that process of putting those caps on those bottles. Now, I would have paid the $100,000 easily, except there was a little caveat that they had in the contract. We won't guarantee that it'll work. This is a complicated thing you've asked us to do, and we think we can do it, but we won't guarantee it. And I'm like, I'm not going to spend $100,000 without a guarantee. Now, you give me an Optimus for $100,000, and I put him back there, he'll work. He'll be able to do it. It might take him a week or a month. I don't know yet how long it would take, but we're only talking about stretching a little piece of plastic, moving something over, and then pushing it down so that it snaps. That's not hard for a human. It wouldn't be hard for a robot. And that was the thing that I couldn't get out of my head, is that I would happily pay $100,000 for that bot. Would have replaced 6 people.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like you just mentioned that this is 2 years already since they announced the bot, which I can't believe it. Time is flying here, but just it goes back to just the pace of innovation. And I mean, how do you think this plays out? Is the bot going to be working in their factories in the next year or two? Like, what do you look out and have any timelines in mind?
Well, so I have interviewed on my show, I've interviewed Scott Walter and Joe Justice and multiple other individuals who are specialists in robotics, specialists in human movement, mechanical movement, etc. And also experts like Joe Justice in terms of factory layout design, Scott Walter, who has been in the robotics business his entire adult life. Everybody thinks it's like a super easy product to build. This is not a hard product to build. It is going to cost around $6,000, maybe a little less when it's in full production, maybe as much as $10,000 when they start out, but probably not a dime more. Scott Walter has gone through an entire list of all of the actual cost of goods, the actual bill of materials, and gone line by line, buying it from Walmart. I mean, not from Walmart, from Amazon. Going on and buying the motors and buying the actuators on Amazon. And so we were talking about it when he's going through this on my show. And I said, so in other words, if you built these things, they'd be like 20% of the cost of what it would be on Amazon. He's like, yeah, well, duh. So anyway, we've all figured out, pretty much everybody's in agreement that I've had on my show somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000. And I would have paid $100,000 for that thing without even, I wouldn't have even, and this is 30 years ago, I would have paid $100,000. So you can imagine how much more I might pay today, maybe a couple of $100,000 for something that'll cost them $6,000 to build. And all of them agreed. The hardware, not a problem. It's a done deal. And Elon says they're going to start building them in 60 days, November. So the software is the hard part. And I'm guessing that the software isn't that hard either, based on what we're hearing.
Right, and especially when it just seems like the next logical step. We already have full self-driving, which is magnitudes more difficult, moving at high speeds and all of these variables, versus putting that into a slow, factory robot. Probably not that difficult of a transition there. And then, as you said, you would pay $100,000 for a warehouse automation robot. It makes a lot of sense. I know that there's a lot of companies looking to get into that. There's another one I'm invested in called Symbotic. I know they're working on warehouse automation. I don't know if you're familiar with that company, but that's a fascinating space, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, companies constantly looking to improve their efficiency, and with all the other headwinds facing that industry that we've seen the last few years, having a robot that can work 20 hours plus a day, just briefly stop to charge. I think that this is in the near future for sure.
Yeah, one of the most fun parts for me about running businesses over the years has been the employees, but that's becoming less and less fun. Because of regulations, because of the way that employees see the ownership now compared to the way they saw ownership 50 years ago, 70 years ago. It's a whole different world. There is no sense of loyalty by the companies or the employees like there was 50, 70 years ago. I saw it as a family. I definitely went to weddings and funerals, and it was a family atmosphere, and it's hard to get that today with all of the onerous ways that government has put their hands into the employee relationship with the owner.
Yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to pull up here. There's an interesting chart. I had written an article over on Substack about Amazon, another company that I'm excited about. Not as excited about Tesla, but I think it would probably be my second choice. But just showing you, like, here we go. Let me pull this up really quick here. Present. So if you look at this chart here by ARK Invest, you can just see the number of robots that the company employs is rapidly increasing. The number of employees, it's been going up, but the number of robots is definitely, I think, going to start to really exponentially increase and catch up because of the reasons you outlined. I mean, it's just the next logical step, it seems.
Well, we've been doing this for over 100 years, over 150 years. We've been automating things. Actually, I guess if you go all the way back to the loom, the automatic loom, you can talk about 300 years. But, the number one job in America when I was a teenager was secretary. There's no such thing as a secretary anymore. Administrative assistants might be they do some of those things, but nobody types a letter for the boss anymore.
Now that's all going to be ChatGPT soon too.
So the marketers are gone too. Yeah, my son is a marketer, and I asked him, I said, "Are you going to lose your job? Now that ChatGPT is around?" He says, "No." He says, "The people that will have jobs in the future are the people that know how to use ChatGPT."
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So there's so many to pick from, but if you had to pick one, what do you think is Tesla's biggest competitive advantage?
Oh my goodness. Probably flexibility. So when we were writing the Elon Musk mission, we came up with, I think it was 21 moats. Maybe it was 22. I forget now. And then after it was finished, we came up with 3 more. But before we actually published, we all of a sudden realized that flexibility was one we had left out. I think the flexibility moat is the number one thing that other companies don't have. They don't get it. They never will. It's almost impossible to have it if the owner, if the top down, if everybody in the organization doesn't understand the potential and the reasons for flexibility. So you have, just in the last, since the book came out, since Isaacson started putting out the little blurbs, you have the flexibility, potentially. Brian White's not sure this is true, but you at least potentially made the decision to move the Generation 3 vehicle over to Austin instead of starting it out in Mexico. So within a couple of weeks in May, they made the decision, maybe we should not do this in Mexico first. We've got all of our top talent in Austin. Let's do it first in Austin. Now, we'll find out whether that's true or whether that's just something that may or may not have actually taken place. We know that the conversations took place. We're not doubting Isaacson, but whether or not that has literally been done, or whether maybe it will just be to build the tooling and then they'll move it immediately, I don't know. We don't know exactly what's going on. But that kind of flexibility, that would take most companies years to make the decision and then years to execute on the decision. So this is a different kind of company.
Most companies, it's just too many layers of managing managers to make those types of calls and just quickly take action. I had Farzad Mesbahi on the channel a while back, and he said he thought the biggest advantage, Farzad's a former Tesla employee, for anyone who doesn't know, was Tesla's culture. But I think that flexibility, culture, all these things go hand in hand. And the important thing is you have the people who are willing to be flexible, to adapt, to change. And yeah, that's exactly what you've seen. Tesla, even a few years ago, it's almost a completely different company today, because even when they announced the bot, at first I was a little skeptical. I was like, all right, hold on. Like, what are we doing now? Like, I got in here for electric vehicles, then it was full self-driving. But it is just this constant pace of change that is a result of culture and willingness to constantly adapt. And I think that's probably in this ever-changing world where I think we're moving at the fastest pace we ever have, it just the pace of iteration, the pace of change, being able to keep up with all that is probably the most important facet of your business to stay competitive.
So Elon is so quotable. I think I have 100 quotes in the back of the mission, my favorite top 100. And he's so quotable, but I think it was him. I'm not 100% sure this was Elon, but I think it was. He said, if you're not disrupting yourself, somebody else will disrupt you. So that's their mindset, is they have to disrupt themselves. And his great worry, you can hear it in the Isaacson book, his great worry is that the company will become too slow. It will become too sure of itself, too flat-footed. It will not continue to take the risks and make the basically on the spot, on the factory floor decisions to make changes that will facilitate better products, less expensive products, etc.
Yeah, that's a great point, and it ties into, I know that he in the book also kind of talking about how Elon doesn't really do well when in calm seas. He always kind of needs to operate in this crisis mode and be doing something radical. And that's almost like at the end of 2022, whether he was just getting unhappy or bored or whatever you want to call it, Tesla's doing great. They just sold 1 million vehicles. SpaceX had launched 33 successful missions in the last few months. He needs to continue to disrupt himself, as you said, or the company needs to. And yeah, that's definitely a great way to stay ahead and, compete with yourself before somebody else does. That's a great quote.
Yeah. And you're always going to have the imitators. So when you talk about the competition, again, I'm not bragging on myself. I'm just giving stories from my own life. I was considered to be an innovator in the bicycle industry. I was constantly coming out with new stuff. And I had a guy down the street who was an importer, and he was, I'm not sure we ever even met, but we certainly knew about each other, and we were only a few miles apart. And I heard, it was reported back to me that he had said, yeah, let Randy be the pioneer, and whatever it ends up actually selling through, then we'll copy it. So this is what you've got now with Elon Musk, is you've got Ford and General Motors and BYD and all these other people are like, okay, well, that's a good idea. We'll copy that. Oh, that's a good idea. That is actually working. We'll copy that. And that's what you're going to see. And he's okay with that. I think it's very important for everybody to understand that Elon knows he can't make 85 million cars a year. He has no intention of. It's not his plan. And so in order to completely replace ICE cars, you have to have a competitive group making, as he says, this is another quotable quote, making compelling products at compelling prices. And so that's what he's hopeful of. He's hoping that the BYDs and the Lees and even the Fords and the General Motors and the Volkswagens, that they will get their act together and start making compelling products at compelling prices, so that my goal, my expectation, 2027 will be the last year that anybody's making an ICE car.
Wow, that's coming up quick. Yeah, and I think copying can only get you so far. And people said the same thing about Apple 10 years ago with the iPhone. Is same cycle plays out over and over. That the iPhone's dead. The iPhone killers are coming. And what ends up happening, if you look at domestically or internationally, it differs. I think in the US, they might have maybe 40 or 50% of the smartphone market. Internationally, maybe it's only 20%, but that's all they need, right? And I feel like we're seeing something similar play out with Tesla, where even if they could capture, say, 10% of the global auto market, that definitely makes them the biggest company in the world. I think on that alone, then you throw in things like FSD. So I guess that perfectly leads into the next thing, which is, what's your outlook here? I'm not sure if you do like projections, or where do you see Tesla being maybe by 2030, whether in the stock price or just the number of vehicles they're going to sell? How do you see this all playing out with FSD and everything?
All right. So I am also an optimist. I'm sorry, I got to put a T on there. I'm an optimist. So I just, whatever Elon says, I believe. So 20 million cars, yeah, I'm good. I think maybe he'll be higher, maybe he'll be lower. He'll be somewhere around 20 million. They could actually, if they continue at 50% a year, they could be at 20 million by 2029. Late 2028, maybe the run rate would be at the 20 million level. Some of the things that they're working on might get them there faster, but there's always a question of making it and also selling it. So they're, that's what they're up against right now, in my opinion. Tesla, Elon's not going to say this, but they are slow walking the ramp at Berlin and at Austin, because they know there's not enough demand for the Model Y to sell another 200,000 this year at margins that they would find acceptable. So hopefully next year things will be different. They'll be able to move a little faster on those ramps. I'd like to see them get back on pace of like 2.5 million next year. But yeah, I definitely make projections, and the company. Well, okay, Elon has repeatedly. Okay, the narrative changed 2 months ago. It's very important for everybody to understand this. These narrative changes. Tesla is a story stock. All companies have a story. But Tesla has a story. Their story is bigger than anybody's story. 5 years ago, Master Plan 1, they were a car company. They were a car company like no other car company, but they were going to disrupt everything about automotive, in particular the electric aspect. And that's who they were. Then all of a sudden, Elon says, no, we're no longer a car company. We're a car company and an energy company. This is a couple of years ago. Even though their total energy sales, were a fraction of their car sales. Well, a few months ago, Elon says, we are an AI company specializing in robotics. Okay? That is a narrative change. Now, I could say that about my company. I could say, oh, well, now I'm a Cybertruck water bottle, or bottle opener company. Nobody would care or know. Your audience, that'd be it. They would be the ones that know. But when you're a company like Tesla, that narrative switch, that change in the mission, that change in the statement of who they are, has to be communicated. And there again, you've got another superpower. Elon is one of the best communicators of all time. Here's a guy that's got Asperger's, who has a trouble getting the words out of his mouth, because, like so many engineers, he's so in his head, it's hard for him to get clarity. But he speaks with such clarity. when you're listening to him, you get it right away. It's so obvious what he's doing, and it's so transparent. So he said this a couple of months ago. Then he does his little drive around in Palo Alto a couple of weekends ago, and that showed everybody, oh, FSD is awfully close. And then you've got the report that came out last Thursday or Friday. I'm forgetting the name of the company and the guy who Goldman.
Goldman Sachs?
Not Goldman Sachs, the other Goldman.
What kind of company?
They came out. They're an investing company. They came out with that 66-page report on Tesla.
Oh, Morgan Stanley.
Morgan Stanley. That's it. Not Goldman. Morgan and Goldman. See, they sound like. Anyway, so when Morgan Stanley came out and Dan Ives came out with that report last week, they were like, okay, they are going to add $500 billion in terms of their valuation, their stock valuation, based on AI, based on Dojo and full self-driving and robotaxis. That's basically what it was. They barely even mentioned the robots, the Optimus. So basically, they're saying $500 billion just for that. So all of a sudden, they bought what Elon was selling, and they said, "Okay, we get it. We're on with you now. We're a believer now." Now everybody else on the street has to look at that, whether they're analysts, whether they're talking heads on CNBC. Every one of them has to look at this now. The eighth largest company by market cap in the world. They've got to look at it and say, who are they really? And now you've got them debating. Well, are they really only a car company? Are they a car company, an energy company? Are they a car company? So he has already made his point. That narrative has now changed, and that is where the future is. And Elon said, the overwhelming, I think the word he used was the overwhelming valuation of Tesla in the future is going to be the AI, the robots, and the two robots, the car and Optimus. That's where the overwhelming value is going to be. If the company is worth 10 trillion, it's going to be 8 trillion of it's going to be that, and 2 trillion is going to be hardware.
Yeah, I know that maybe about a year or around the time when the bot was announced was when Elon started to say Tesla is going to be most well known or well remembered for being an AI and robotics company. And yeah, it just goes back to this company just continues to evolve and reinvent itself and compete against themselves. I want to circle back to, you mentioned how they're kind of sandbagging for the demand for things like the Model Y and these ramps. Why do you think that is? Is that a short-term just market conditions, or have they reached like the maximum for the demand that there is for a Model Y type car?
Yeah, I think what it boils down to, it was a very tough year. 7% interest rates on a car are not unusual historically. But the people who were 20 years old 20 years ago and now are 40 have never seen those kind of interest rates as adults, okay? They're used to 3%, 2%, 0%, okay? And so you all of a sudden go from 0 to 2%, which is what on our Model Y we have a 2% interest rate. And all of a sudden you're up at 7%, 6.7, whatever. There's a sticker shock thing going on there. And so there had to be an adaptation to that. And there was also less demand because of the pricing. And so you have to adapt to it. And I think Elon realized, he said, a year ago, we're going to have a recession. And he pointed out that the problem with these interest rates, well, he was wrong about the recession, but he's right about the interest rates, which are still going higher even today after these oil shock that's happening right now. But all year this year, oil prices have been low, gasoline prices have been low until 3 months ago, and interest rates have been high. That's the opposite of what Tesla needs to sell vehicles. And so you have the whole Midwest of the United States that has not begun to buy Tesla vehicles yet. They're at 2%. They're at 1.5%. California is at 22%, 25%. 25% EVs in general, 22% Tesla. That's of the total auto market in California, okay? compared to you go a couple of states over to Iowa or to Kansas, and it's at 1 or 2%. Why haven't they come along for the ride? Well, number one, things start on the coast and then come to the Midwest. But the main thing is, I paid $5.95 for gas the other day, and it's still $3 in Missouri. Okay, so it's not a big a part of the budget. It's just not as big a deal. In Europe, gasoline is $9 a gallon, $10 a gallon. And they've been having that now for as long as I can remember, for 10, 20 plus years, because they tax the heck out of gasoline over there. So you've got this take rate in places, and being in the bicycle business my whole life, I've seen this my whole life, where the price of oil and gasoline goes up and bicycle sales go crazy. And then it comes back down and the bike shops are going, where are the customers? What happened? And so,
yeah, and I'm sure now it's the electric bikes too are getting more popular.
Electric bikes are definitely the thing, but they're being affected right now. They've been affected by the low price of oil and by the overhang from COVID. But now, with the price of oil going up, I'm expecting to see a lot more people walking into bike shops looking for that electric bike.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Do you have any of those Cybertruck bottle openers on hand? We could show the viewers here.
Unless you're going to make a cut right now, I would have to run into the other room and grab it, because I was taking pictures of it for Amazon.
All right, let's see these Cybertruck bottle openers.
Yeah. So I mean, one of my listeners, one of my viewers on my YouTube channel sends me these sight unseen. I mean, I just got them in the mail. And as soon as I saw it, I was in love. I was like, this is a great product. And it's made out of stainless steel. It's super heavy duty. It's the same thickness as the actual Cybertruck. And there's a bottle opener too, and a refrigerator magnet. I mean, it's so cool. And then I open another box. I open this box, I see this, and then I open another box, and he's got it in camo.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be buying one of these, at least one for sure. Very cool. Go right on my fridge.
That's right. And, so it's been selling extremely well. I've been very, very impressed with the sales so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a sick product. And well, everyone watching today, make sure you like and subscribe this video. Randy, it's been great having you on here. Was there anything else you want to talk about?
Let's see. Buy the book.
I'll have to look into those as well. Yeah, he's got
always closing. That's what they're going to put on my grave.
I love it. Well, thanks for coming on. This was a pleasure having you. Always, great insights from you. Love watching your channel. Everyone should check out Randy's channel at Randy Kirk, and I'll link to that in the description below as well. Thanks for coming on, Randy.
Been great. Thanks for having me.
See you guys on the next one. Like and subscribe.
Thank you.